Tenet's 1964. You know, this is the movie that your parents didn't want you to see. This is the movie that, you know, had protests by every church and it was condemned by everybody. And we decided to remake it. So, you know, enjoy. And we'll see you later with a sneak preview. No, it was going to turn into a 5-year odyssey. What had happened was, at the time, Bob Zemeckis and Joel Silver were remaking the films of William Castle. They had just done House on Haunted Hill, and were getting ready to do 13 Ghosts. And I had just finished producing Detroit Rock City, and I really wanted to write and direct, which is something that I always really started out doing, just got sidetracked into the producing element. And a guy came into my office named Chris Coben and said that he had the rights to remake the films of Herschel Gordon Lewis. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool, you know, American Pie had just come out, and I said, I don't believe you could actually remake Herschel Gordon Lewis and do it as a straight drama or a straight thriller. You know, all of Herschel's films, tongue is firmly put in cheek, and then he, of course, cuts it off. So I decided to do a horror comedy, having loved the films of people like John Landis and movies like Motel Hell and Stuart Gordon's Reanimator. So we kind of decided to do what we call splatstick. And, you know, we blend horror and comedy and try and kind of offset it with horror, comedy, and then hit you with horror. The film's first arc is very silly and funny, and then it gets a little dark, and then the last third is just balls to the wall horror. But, you know, we tried, in the world of independent filmmaking, I wrote it and immediately optioned a script. Rhino Films was going to make it. Great. And then, tragically, 9/11 happened, and, you know, the financiers were tied into that, and thank God no one was hurt, but financing fell apart. Then we got it set up a second time, and Robert Englund I wrote the part of Mayor Buckman for Robert Englund. I knew him from having worked at New Line. So I had asked him if he could play Mayor Buckman, and he said yes, so the part was written with him in mind. We had the sets built in LA, we had all the costumes done. Krista had been signed on to play the milkmaiden, and 2 weeks before filming, the sets burnt down. So, you know, it was like, oh, what am I going to do now? It's like, I've been trying to make this film, you know, should I just go back to substitute teaching? And I figured, you know, 2 strikes I'm out, or 3 strikes I'm out, or 3rd time's a charm. So I you know, at the time, to my benefit, I had a film that literally was ready to go. You know, if you had a check, I had a film to go. I had all my actors, I had my costumes, you know. And a guy named Chris Tuffin came along, and he was able to raise the money from, you know, Eli Roth had just started his Raw Nerve company coming off the success of Cabin Fever. So his company put up half the money, and this time, sometimes things happen for a reason. Instead of shooting on some sets that probably would have looked like the original Maniacs, we found a town in Georgia called Westville that it was an actual Civil War reenactment town that came with, like, people live there and still dress as if everything is the same as it was, except for one thing. They can't deal with the fact that the South lost the Civil War. And they really are severe rednecks, and it was a very interesting experience being there. But we found this place, and we had the run of it for 3 weeks, and we recast some parts, and that's when Dylan came aboard. And, you know, we just were there, we just stayed there for 3 weeks and just let the cameras roll and just had a lot of fun. It was very challenging, but everyone was a trooper. I was so blessed to have, you know, actors who stuck with me for years through the ups and downs of this film. And, you know, Robert Englund just was amazing, and you know, so many times he could have walked away from this project and he didn't. And, you know, now finally, after 5 years, it's been much, you know, hoopla, it's finally seeing the light of day.
Any questions?
Any questions? Yes, sir.
What about 2000 Maniacs really made you want to remake it, and what do you really like about it?
About the original film? I think, you know, let's be honest, the film is not the Citizen Kane of horror films, okay? What the film lacks in perhaps craft and the limitations of the budget, I think it really makes up for in what I consider its rebel spirit, its audaciousness, its audacity. You know, it's easy to look at a film now, 40 years later, you know, yeah, the print was a little rough around the edge, sorry about that, I've been asked to, I'm apologizing for his mistake, no, I'm just kidding. But, no, it's easy to judge a film out of the context of its time. But in 1964, to show on screen, you know, blood, Technicolor blood, you know, disembowelment, and you know, it's so funny. They went literally to the local butcher shop. I mean, everything you're seeing in that film was like, you know, leftover vitriol, you know, from some cow. We actually used rubber and fake blood, but in its time, it just shocked people. And you know, I love rock and roll. You know, being involved with Kiss, you know, and Gene Simmons is like, you know, just spitting blood on stage. It's just in your face. I used to do magic. I think that movie special effects are like magic tricks. Nobody really is dying. Nobody, you know, Dylan's still alive. He has a couple of scars on his chest, but he's okay. And it's like magic. It's misdirection. And it literally wasn't, you know, honestly, it wasn't all my life I wanted to remake 2000 Maniacs, but when the opportunity came my way, and I said, you know, here's a chance. If Monty Python made a horror movie, that's what 2000 Maniacs would be. So we were very true to the spirit, and we just had a lot of fun with it, and the chance to work with Robert Englund, you know, and I know these guys, you know, what was it?
Why don't you guys speak a little bit about acting the film and the scene we've just seen?
Hi, Krista. The experience this film was, blood and guts from everybody. We all pulled together and we were out in this town, and it was just, it was definitely a team effort. And without Robert and Lynn Shay and Tim and, you know, their spirit and their drive kept all of us going. At 5 o'clock in the morning, you gotta not have an attitude. You gotta just go with the punches when it's cold, and you know, we had the best. So as far as
these guys weren't sitting around in trailers, you know, having food fed to them.
It was like mosquitoes and this and that, and there was like a point at like 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm looking at Robert and Lynn, and they're like telling jokes, and I'm like, you know what? This is the best learning experience I've got. Working on this film has been amazing because it was built on passion and drive, and everyone working so hard. It was different than anything else I'd been involved in. So when the big stars are, you know, ranting and raving, and they're having such a great time, and you know, it's a great positive feeling that you get working on a film like this. And actually, our scene, it was like, I don't even know what time it was, but
it was late.
It was late.
And
Tim had got stung by a bee.
Yeah, it's the type of thing where you plan everything in advance. But no matter how hard you plan, the day that we shot their scene, and it was a Friday, we had done a full day of stuff, but we have Hucklebilly, we did the scene where Hucklebilly hangs the cat, and while we were filming it, I got stung by 3 wasps, you know, and I passed out, and and then I wake up, and they're telling me, well, it might rain tomorrow, so we have to shoot the acid moonshine scene. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, I could barely think. And I just went, and I got some Sudafed, and I drank like a 2-liter bottle of Diet Coke, and you just do what you gotta do. And Dylan, my God, talk about a trooper. You talk about what you actually went through. With bed and all that.
I'm Dylan. First off, I just want to say thank you for having us up here. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be here. For that scene you guys just saw, I was put under a bed where it was like sawed out, and my head came through a hole because I had to fit the prosthetic dummy up on top of it to do the whole special effects. That wasn't real. So I was pretty much under the bed for about 6.5 hours. Once I was in, I couldn't get out because then they started putting all the gore and the goop on, and the smoke machine, the Gatorade that's supposed to be moonshine acid. It was about end of November, so it started getting really cold, and it's really drafty in those old Civil War-esque houses. And so she was such a trooper too. I was there. They scheduled us for the next day. I woke up at 5 a.m. and I found out that we were doing that big scene that night. So I was pretty much there from 5 a.m. to about 2 a.m. the following day. So we worked about 18, 19 hours straight. It was just incredible, but hopefully, it looked good. It turned out great, and I had a great time doing it.
It was, and I'm just like, we just did it. It's sometimes I have to honestly say, and we keep going back to the theme of this festival, fearless tales. There's something to be said about that limitations often breed creativity. I think, you know, when you have $100 million and 100 days to make a film, you can get lazy. I've seen it happen. You know, we are there's no time to second guess yourself, and there's an energy that comes out of being, you know, under the gun and just trying to do what you gotta do. And, you know, the cheapest thing is your imagination. It doesn't cost anything a pen and paper really costs nothing. And I think too many Hollywood films, I'll use an example, Van Helsing, I think was the perfect example of horror gone wrong. You know, they just had an extended amount of money, and they, you know, nobody paid attention to the script. This film was entirely storyboarded. Every single shot in this film, I storyboarded with my storyboard artist. It almost was like I directed the movie on paper. And in fact, that's how I got the gig, because I had only directed small films before. I wrote this, and then I was going to produce it, but, you know, I decided, in order to prove that I could direct this, it was like a comic book of the entire movie with, you know, every image on one side and the script on the other, and it was that storyboard book that secured me the job of directing it. And what's really amazing is if you look at the film now, it literally is those storyboards come to life. I mean, this scene was exactly as it was. And I think when you have 18 days, you gotta know exactly what you're doing. Now, we still try to allow the actors some room for improvisation, but improvisation within, you know, the context. And I know before we rehearsed a lot.
Yeah. This movie can be easily misinterpreted because it is a horror comedy. Most people who hear this movie will come and think it's like a Texas Chainsaw or just straight horror, because a lot of viewers can't deal with two different genres clashing. And he really stayed true to the original, which most filmmakers will, you know, kind of abide by what the viewers want to see. But he really stayed true to the original, and hopefully the people that are releasing it will keep it that way.
It was very nerve-wracking because David Friedman, who's the original producer, you know, my God, every time we were about, you know, he God bless him. I mean, Herschel and David gave me the rights to the movie for $1. They believed in me, they believed in my passion, and every time it fell apart, I kept thinking, you know, somebody else, they're gonna give the option to somebody else, but they never did. And about 3 months ago, David flew in from Georgia, and it was me and him and Chris Coben who wrote the film with me, and we showed it to him. Now, I was terrified, because quite honestly, if the guy who made this originally doesn't like it, I'm screwed, man. And he sat there and he was singing along to, we have the Strolling Minstrels, we have songs in it, you know, Hucklebilly, Mayor Buckman, Welcome to Pleasant Valley. We were true to a lot of the points of the story. And when it was over, he looked at me and he said, you know what? You made a modern movie, but you kept the joke intact. And I think that for me so far, that's been the greatest compliment. So,
Have we got any other questions?
more questions, please.
Please, fire them in.
We had 12 principal maniacs, 8 principal victims, and about 100 extras, and 1 woman whose job was to sew every one of those costumes and clothe them all. We had 3 special effects people who were like building, you know, his chest at night while they were drawing and quartering. And we have a drawing and quartering. We have a spike through the butt that comes out the mouth. We got, you know.
You did that all there?
A lot of it was done in advance. These guys back in LA, they went and had Dylan had his body cast.
Head cast, body cast, all kind of taken care of in LA, but you know, still they did work around the clock in Georgia as well for other things.
And like I talked about the storyboard process, I worked with the special effects people so we knew exactly what we needed, you know. And then what happened was we shot the film, and we came back to LA and we put together an assembly, which is when you first put it together before you fine-tune cut it. And the producers were really pleased with it. They really felt that it was at first, you know, maybe we hope it goes theatrical, but we knew we were going to get a straight to DVD release. They were so pleased with it that they actually anteed up some more money, and we did a couple of days of reshoots where we did a little bit of CGI for some of the special effects, and we you know, like for instance in that scene we did the under the bed shot of the guts coming through, just to, you know, a little icing on the cake that really made the difference. Yeah.
That's another thing. Yeah, we weren't actually going to do CGI, huh? I mean, we were going to stay so true to the original, just keep it with the. I remember I had goop and gore on that scene, like on my neck, just freezing cold and just blood and smoke. I mean, at that point there was no CGI involved. in the whole film, but thank God they liked it and they did CGI.
Because I was so against Van Helsing, that so many horror movies nowadays look like video games.
Right.
They're not actors with makeup. The actors are responding to something that isn't there. And I think that even in a cheesy movie, when you have somebody reacting, even to a 6-foot-tall rubber monster, there's still something organic about that actor's performance. So I was really adamant. There's no way I'm going to remake Herschel Gordon Lewis and have CGI. No, I'm not going to remake a film that had real cow entrails. But what happened was, when we came back, they showed me some tests. And I couldn't tell her the CGI was. And one of the very interesting things is the movie's called 2001 Maniacs. We had 100 extras. So when Dylan first arrives in town, we have everybody flank the car just like in the original, but there's only 100 people. So we CGI'd 2,000 people, and I defy anybody to tell the difference.
Yeah.
We CGI'd just stuff like that. Most people in the background, some blood stuff. I think that if CGI is used as a crutch, I mean, it's a mistake, but as cleanup, like for instance, people don't think about that, but if I'm getting ready to shoot a scene and there's like this is supposed to be, look like an old town, there's a wire in the air. Well, I know that if CGI, I can erase that. So use of CGI like that, I think, is very good.
Right.
Questions?
Questions? I'm sorry? We were I was, getting ready to shoot the film, and Herschel called me up. And Herschel has I don't know if people realize this, but Herschel gave up filmmaking to become the market guru. He does, television marketing and has made so much money from that, jingles and all this. He kind of retired. So when he heard that we were doing this and we got a lot of press, Fangoria's been very kind, he called me up one day and he had this brilliant idea that he was going to direct all the murder sequences. And he said, you're going to be so excited, Tim, I'm coming out of retirement, I'm going to direct all the murder sequences. I was like, oh, come on. What am I supposed to do? It's like...
That's all the fun.
That's all the fun stuff, and I had storyboarded and everything, and I didn't know what to do. I mean, I don't want to insult the guy who created this, so that's where producers come in, and they just said no.
Good old producer.
But ever since then, I have to admit, Herschel's been a little... He's kind of distanced himself from this a little bit. So he's not in any rush to see it. Herschel is in his 70s. Dave Friedman, who's the original producer of it, is 81, and he's the most amazing man. And he really was the the hands-on. He was more hands-on. Herschel was a producer in name only, But I love Herschel,
Are they, you pay them $1 for rides, or they must be benefiting.
Oh, absolutely. They paid me. For independent filmmaking, they paid me $1 up front against, a producer's credit and producer's salary and producer's back end upon the completion of the film. So they benefit from this. Herschel's benefiting from this. He's making more money than I did on this, absolutely.
Are you going to have to cut the film to get it released?
Oh, well, that's kind of up to the...
It was very funny. When we wrote this, I thought for sure we're not going to get away with this. As John Landis always said, you can have sex in a film and you can have violence in a film, but if you have sex and violence in the same scene, you're fucked. So, we haven't gone to the ratings board yet. You may see what you saw tonight may never be seen again except on a special edition DVD. However,
That definitely will not happen.
However, I just saw Devil's Rejects, which did get an R, and if that movie can get an R, Jesus Christ.
What about The Passion?
If The Passion can get an R, but so I don't know. I really don't know. But I do know that Rob Zombie, what he did was he sat with a ratings board and actually held their hand through everything and explained stuff. And I've got all my arguments that this is a cartoon, it's splat stick, it's not really, We'll see what happens, but either way, it'll all be on DVD. It'll all be there. So
We got a couple more questions.
I'm very happy. It's been very great ever since you go 4 years of getting people to return your calls. And every studio in Hollywood would not make this movie, and then finally you make it on your own independently, and now they're all knocking on your door. But I just wrote a script for Toby Hooper, which he's going to direct. And my next directing film is quite different. It's a film called Driftwood. I set it up with Dark Horse Films. Dark Horse is a comic book company that did Alien vs. Predator and Barbed Wireless. And it's about one of those attitude adjustment camps for teenagers that's haunted by the ghost of a kid who had been murdered there. It's quite different from this.
What about Krista and Dylan? What have you guys got planned next?
I'm Giuseppe Andrews, who plays Harper Alexander. Currently in negotiations to do another film with him. And then a couple pilots in the work right now. And so just keep myself busy.
I leave next week. I'm going to Florida to do a movie with John Travolta and James Gandolfini called Lonely Hearts.
Very cool.
And you may have seen Krista in Mosquito recently on the Sci-Fi Channel.
And she played Betty Page.
Betty Page, too.
Betty Page, and you can go to KristaCampbell.com and see her beautiful, calendars and all that good stuff. DylanEnderton.com, he's got some calendars too.
Yeah.
Are you all originally from LA or?
I'm actually from Walnut Creek.
And I'm from Oakland.
30 minutes east of here, so.
I'm from Jersey.
I'm not even from this country.
He's from Scotland. Yes, sir.
What's the
Toby Hooper movie is one. It's one of those things where I can't tell too much, but I will say this: it's about a psychopathic family of certain type of characters that take a human family hostage over a weekend, and it's kind of like a horror version of a film of Cape Fear or Desperate Hours. It's a horror noir, we call it. So Toby came up with the idea and asked me to write it for him. So I was honored. Couldn't believe it. I said yes.
Have we got a final question, or are we taking off?
Any more questions? Well, if you have any more questions that you can't think of now, we're all going to be at that party, and we'd love to, chat with you guys, and
Just to say, unfortunately, John Landis can't be at the party tonight because he's got a job he's got to take care of back in LA, but he will be in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tim Sullivan's going to be presenting him with the Fearless Vision Award.
Yes, I'm very excited
And
about that.
I'm going to be doing a Q&A with them, and it'll be really exciting, so hope to see you there. But in the meantime,
Innocent Blood and American Werewolf
American
in
Werewolf
London.
London. But in the meantime, we're going to go and get drunk, so if anybody wants to...
Come get drunk with us,
That's the
okay?
fun part, really.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I can't tell you what it means to me to be able to honor John Landis. What can I say? Life is not a genre. As much as we would like to wake up in the morning and say, I think today is going to be a comedy, or no action or drama in my life, or today is going to be an action-packed, lethal weapon kind of day. It just doesn't happen. Life is not categorized that easily. And I think a lot of us would like to be able to have our days be one or the other. And I think there's a lot of people out there who would like their entertainment, their music, their film to be kind of the same way. But life blends genres. And I think truly great art blends genres. But it's often not that much accepted, because if you fail at blending genres, you really can fall hard on your butt. But if you succeed, you can create some of the greatest films of all time. Well, John Landis blends genres. And to me, that is a definition, in keeping in the theme of this festival, of fearless filmmaking. John Landis is a master of horror, but John Landis is a master of comedy. He's a master of musical films. He took horror and added humor and gave us American Werewolf. He took horror and added pop music and gave us Thriller, the first long-form music video ever. He took the gangster genre and blended it with the vampire genre and gave us Innocent Blood. Within the film, he blends genres. In his career, he blends genres. He's really hard to define, except there is one theme throughout everything he does, and that is a fearless vision of just going for it, being true to himself, his sense of humor, his sense of style. It is impossible to see a movie and not realize that John Landis directed it. Anybody of my generation was influenced by John Landis and American Werewolf, Animal House, Blues Brothers, Trading Places, Thriller, Coming to America. I mean, these are classic films. To have just made one of them is an achievement. He did them all. And it's really amazing to still, all these years later, have his films play and have people come out and see it. And it's because he never played it safe. He's never played it safe. And additionally, he is one of the coolest guys ever. When I was 18 years old, I had a job parking cars on Coming to America. I was in charge of finding places for Eddie Murphy's camper to park. I was the lowest man on the totem pole, but that meant nothing to John, who is a monster fan at heart, and bonded with me over our mutual love of Forey Ackerman, Famous Monsters. You know, it didn't matter. And he took time to watch my student film, and he took time to be there for every PA who had a dream of one day making a horror movie like him. For me, that dream came true. I owe so much of it to him. So it is really special for me to be able to say on behalf of Michael Davidson and the Fearless Film Award that tonight we present the second of what we hope will be many Fearless Film Awards for achievement in fearlessness in filmmaking. So let's give a great round of applause to my all-time favorite director, John Landis.
Thank you. FT.
Yes.
FT.
Fearless Tales.
Fearless Tales! Okay, thank you. Fearless Vision. Okay.
It's the Fearless Tales Award for your fearless vision.
I see, thank you. This is very nice, thank you. This is a weapon. Thank you.